If this message is speaking to your heart, please subscribe to Your Miracle Self. Let's continue this journey together.
I would like you to close your eyes and lose the concept of a physical body. Trade in your concept for a brand new body. Now your new body, your spiritual body, has lived where you are for at least several million years, and you may just be becoming acquainted with it, and you're going to discover that it is your freedom from the world of opposites, from the world of violence, from the world of indecision, from the world of time, space, and all kinds of delays. Everything that happens in the world is eventually going to be overcome. And it may sound improbable to you, but to some of you who have begun your overcoming some time ago, it is the answer to the freedom that your soul requires. Your spiritual body must be considered as the only way out of the world mesmerism. Now let's look at our spiritual body, and let's think of it in terms of the sun. No matter where we are on this earth, we all recognize that there's one sun in the sky. It's for all colors, all religions, all people. And that's precisely what one body is. You can't have a spiritual body, and I can have another one. There's only one spiritual body, and we either share it or we're not entering into the truth of Christ. Now, when we say spiritual body, we talk about something that we're not really acquainted with. We can think of nice things about it, but we don't know what it does and how it does it. You're going to learn slowly that the spiritual body, which is available to you, is going to be accomplished by you only by giving up the old body. You can't be in a physical body and a spiritual body. That's a hard thing to do. Some aren't able to do it, and some aren't willing to do it, and it's their privilege. But those who are able and those who are willing must learn why the spiritual body is the most unique possession of an individual. We call it a possession, but it's not. It really possesses us. The spiritual body is what we use to get into that level of consciousness which is not subject to any other level. The only freedom in the world is to live in the spiritual body. Now, there are 5 basics to a spiritual body which you should know about. And one is that the spiritual body is never born. You were born to a woman, and you may be a woman and give birth to other children, but the spiritual body was never born to a woman, and it never gives birth. It is completely without the element of birth in it. The spiritual body is the child of God, and it was placed in the kingdom of God by the Father without birth, without growing, without age, without fear of death. It was placed in the spiritual universe at its full maturity. Your spiritual body has nothing to learn, but the individual who accepts the spiritual body has much to learn. Now, that spiritual body will never die. It can never be injured. It will never be harmed. It makes no difference what anyone says about it. It goes right on being the spiritual body of the universe. And whether you're black or white or red or brown, you share the one spiritual body, just like you share the sunshine. You can't play favorites in the kingdom of God. So that there really is no color in the kingdom of God for the body. It is an incorporeal body, an invisible body. It is unlike anybody that we know. And yet within it is every good thing that God has prepared for His children. When you are living in that body, even to a small measure, and your awareness is just as big as a thimble, your life changes. There's no expressing it. It just changes. You feel the spiritual nature of yourself, and the spiritual body has the capacity to feel the spiritual nature of everyone. So that in your spiritual body, you are without fault, without the possibility of injuring anyone, without the possibility of gossip, without the possibility of argument, without any possibility of a negative in the universe. And the nice thing about your spiritual body is that whereas in your human body it is temporary, it is mortal, it experiences death and reincarnation, these factors all disappear because your spiritual body knows nothing about death. Your spiritual body is life. And as you can see, this is quite a change. It's a momentous change from the mortals that we have lived as, and the things we have done as mortals, the aims we have had, the goals we have cherished. All of that disappears. There's a complete new leaf. And now, as we walk in the spiritual body, which we're not aware of in its scope, in its non-dimensional form, we can't begin to understand how the spiritual body is going to influence everything we do and say and feel. But it will, and it will give order to your life. It will give a sense of divine living. It will give a sense of divine intelligence. It will give a sense of eternity. Because the divine body, the immortal body, the spiritual body, is the Christ body. And that Christ body is in every son of God, whether he knows it or not. So that he would live as a mortal and die as a mortal and still be in a Christ body. And never having realized it, we'd come back again and learn all over again, perhaps this time, that his spiritual body, his Christ body, is the body of the universe. Now maybe there's 1 or 2 or 10 who say, well, if that's the case, then I'm in a spiritual body. I don't even have to find it to know it's there. God gave me a spiritual body, and I must be in it. And God didn't give me a human body, and I must not be in that. And this is a hard thing, because you've got to slowly form the opinion, and you'll have to form it in some way, that the body you walk in daily is not your body. It is not a body either. It is the concept you entertain about your spiritual body. And the spiritual body, which is the real one, is the one you're going to have to come into an awareness of. And that takes time, takes effort, takes dedication. It takes so many things, and yet everything you possibly can do to bring about your awareness of the spiritual body is beyond reward, because the human body is bound to outlive itself, and the only one that remains is the spiritual body. And if you have no concept of what it is, no awareness of how it lives, why it lives, what you can do to become aware of it, then you're missing the life that has been provided for you, and you're living in the imitation of life, which is what we all do for a long time. But we're going now to life. We're going to the realization of that substance which is perfect, which is of God, and which is your substance. The divine life of the Father is your substance. And it's up to you to learn how to prove it to yourself. People can tell you what to do and how to say it and what to think and how not to think. But in the long journey, the only proof of that divine life will come within your consciousness. And you will know, I am divine life. And I need not tell you when that happens. 1,000 firecrackers will shoot off. The sun will burst out of the sky. Things will occur that you never could envision. And you will begin to say to yourself, I am not a person. I may have appeared as a person. That's not who I am. I am something different. I know it's called Christ, but I haven't yet reached the realization of that Christ. But I am not bound by human law. I am not bound by time. I'm not even bound by space. And when I get sick, it's a lie. Divine life doesn't know what sickness is. It's a vestige of the past which I am involved in remembering, and yet it's not a reality. I'll shake this off. I'm not afraid of it. And when I see how easily I shake off these so-called sicknesses, I will realize that something has happened to me. Something has happened to me that I cannot explain, but it has happened. And sometimes it will give you evidence that it comes from a different level of being than you're aware of. It brings with it a certain peace. It brings with it the awareness that you have been chosen for a special purpose, and that someone is watching over you at all times. I know this is a wonderful feeling, and a true one. And I know that everyone in this room is going to experience that in a full measure, even if only in a part measure at the moment. It is just a matter of saying to the Father, you have set me on the road, and I am willing. It doesn't matter what you expect of me, that's what I will do. Because you, as my Father, are aware of what I must do in order to attain the fullness of Christ, the full stature of real Christ manhood. And so I will follow where you walk, at all cost, because there's no cost too great for Christhood. It matters not what you ask, how difficult it seems. It's child's play to me because I know the inevitability of Christ. And one could not attain the Christ if it were impossible. And so we start now with the awareness that I am the child of God, that I live with divine wisdom that is matured into divine understanding, that is matured into a divine life, that is under the jurisdiction of one individual who is infinite in nature, who is all-knowing and all-wise. And I live under God in my divine life. And though at first I'm a little bit of awareness, that awareness grows, and I find in God the beginning of an unusual peace, a peace that really I cannot understand because it's so perfect. But it's a peace that comes to me in a certain way to assure me that it is a peace of God. It is a peace that it's beyond my understanding, but nevertheless I understand that I love it and want it and will do anything to maintain it. So anything God requires, I will do. Now this peace covers all situations. It covers the place where once sickness was, where once death was thought of as a probability, an inevitability. The place where all that is ungodly is not. And there is such a place for you. And we are to maintain that level of consciousness which lives in that place of the Most High, where the I that I am cannot be touched, where the I that I am lives a life which is equal with God in every possible way, even to the extent of being as long-lived as God, as perfect as God, as free of any form of argument or pain or sadness or loss, just as perfect as God. And I live in that, and I find in that the way to the fulfillment of my being. Because what I think is perfect becomes something new when I am lifted still higher and find a new level of perfection. And that level always changes. It always moves up until I find, to my surprise, that there are infinite levels of perfection. And they all belong to me by virtue of my sonship. Now don't let go of your spiritual body. Even the concept. Hold the concept and know that there is one. Because there is. It is a new level of living. It is the only way you can maintain and attain the fifth level of the universe. The fifth level of life is attained in your soul. But it is because there's a spiritual body in which the soul lives. And that's the sixth level of life. So you're really climbing in your awareness into two levels, the fifth and sixth, the soul and the spirit. And now you're off the earth. There are people on the earth who are relics of the past. They move and they have their being and they say things and they feel things, but they are where you were. They do not know about this realm that is above them, this realm of the soul and the spirit. And you must live there a while, without problems, completely at peace, learning what has to be learned, what must be learned, what can only be learned by living there. You will find to your surprise that no one in the soul realm has an evil thought about the other. They are like brothers walking in the invisible universe, to be concerned about any individual in this country of the soul. Because all are one. And each one has come from the far country, where all were many, and has learned through mistake after mistake that the far country was not God's world, but rather the world in which illusion was rampant. You won't meet any people, but you will meet souls like yourself, all who knew on you at being in this universe, all of whom are in a state of wonderment. There are no problems in this universe. There is no sadness. Now, there will be a wayward impulse in you saying, I think I'll fall back into the other universe because there are things I want to do. That depends on you. You're given the free will to do so. But when the prodigal returns, you will remember that the father brought out the fatted calf. He had come from the far country where he lived with the animals, the pigs. And that was the equivalent of living in the world. When he moved to the Father's house again, when he had attained that level of awareness, which had to be in the Father's house. Then a new self was born. And now you are in the strains of a new birth, a new self. A self which knows that the world you came out of is not your natural habitat. We cannot live in the world, for the world is not my Father's kingdom. And we must learn how to live outside of the world, in my Father's kingdom, according to the laws of my Father. This demands 100% of your attention to the will of God, and 100% of your own will to fulfill that will of God. And so we move now in a sort of between two worlds. I've had enough of the world in which I cannot attain my fullness, and yet I am not yet able to climb to that level in which my fullness is attained. So I'm in between, and more or less describes all of us. And now what we attain in this in-between level will depend on the divine intelligence that we bring to bear. If I have a spiritual body and do not use it, then I'm committing a folly. If I have a spiritual body and can learn to use it, it must be in the way that God has prescribed. And so my spiritual body comes with many do's and don'ts. The moment I decide to use my spiritual body to accomplish this and that of material nature, I'm out. That's not the purpose of my spiritual body, and it won't do that. I can't use my spiritual body for personal ambition. It won't do it. The spiritual body is not at my beck and call. It is provided for God. And unless I am following God's beck and call, I am not in my spiritual body at all. So I say, Father, how do we work the spiritual body? What do we do? The Father says, pay attention. Be still. And let the divine will guide you in such a way that what you do is to perform acts of spiritual value which elevate you in the awareness of living in the Spirit. It is said that love is the fulfilling of the law. It is not said that the opposite is in any way. in the law. And so whoever you find that you cannot love, that is blocking your attainment of the spiritual body. You didn't know you were blocking your attainment when you had negative phrases about that individual. But there's no place for that kind of individual that you are being when you have negative thoughts about another, because you're not seeing through the illusion. The illusion is that there is no one there to have negative thoughts about. You think he or she is this or that. There is no such person. There's no place possible for your negative thoughts to live in. The kingdom of heaven is not the perfect place for you to survive, because whatever you say of a negative nature is untrue. And so you don't qualify. You don't qualify yourself. You've got personal animosities to still fulfill. Now all of that has to go, and quickly. We have been so silly that for thousands of years we've all stood in our own way. You start your new beginning with an understanding that the only thing in my kingdom is the Son of God. There's nothing else to find there. And the Son of God is perfect. There are no bodies, no physical bodies. There are no emotions. All of that is forgotten as you leave your human concepts. You try, if you can, to look at the women who followed Jesus. Do you recall one argument among them? Do you recall anything but a quiet form of contentment among them? They are your role models. Look at them again, and you will find the women who accept God's presence where they are. They actually live in the presence of God. Look at some of the disciples who have transcended. You will find that they, too, live in the presence of God. See how attentive they are to every thought and word of the Father. When you walk in the path of these individuals, you walk in their company. Not only will you receive their help, but you will find a different degree of activity which leads to the peace, the understanding, the love. And this aura of contentment will enable you to maintain your ascent. Try to find this level in which you are unmoved by the activities of the world. And when you start to live in that form of life, you will find much help that you hadn't imagined. because invisible angels will come to your aid very quickly, and you will find that something is helping me. I'm a different person than I was. I was very critical. I don't know why I'm not, but I'm not. I was even critical of myself, and I'm not anymore. Somehow the path is open for me. And it all had started when I realized that I was a spiritual being living in the spiritual body of God. And something prevents me being anything else. The beginnings may be difficult, but quickly there will be a stability, then an assurance, a confidence, and a capacity to develop further into a true Son of God. You've got to start somewhere. Start with your new body, your spiritual body. Now let's meditate again on it. And I'd like someday for you to be aware that you've always been in this spiritual body and are now, and to seek a sign which can only come from the invisible Spirit of God. I don't know why a person knows he's in a spiritual body, or he knows that he's not. Those who walk in one could possibly tell you why they know they have one. But you'll find that when you are in one, you won't want to talk about it either. You just want to know that you are in one. And you're not going to talk about being in one to someone who's not. Because your conversation stays where it belongs, in heaven. Mortals will find the spiritual body just as you are going to find it. It comes in a way you know not of. But when you find it, somehow something in you isn't hungry. Something in you isn't worried about a cut on your arm. Something in that spiritual body is free. And all of a sudden you realize there's something that I have that isn't controlled by the things I see. Things come to my mind from a different level. There's no fear in my spiritual body. And one by one you find certain qualities which make it different than any body that you have ever had. So that you say to yourself, apparently I've got a body that is different. And then it dawns on you that you have a spiritual body. And as you develop the qualities of it slowly, feeling your way totally, you become aware that there's something there that's stable and unchanging. Something that will always be there. Something that doesn't get ill. Something that's not petrified by thoughts of death. In fact, the spiritual body knows that death is not even a rumor. Now, this body will not give birth. It will not be a mother, it will not be a father. It will not be a male nor a female. And it will be your body. It's the body of the divine child. And just a glimmer of a glimpse is enough to set you off until that glimmer becomes a reality in your mind. Because even your mind changes. You are being put into an awareness of something you never heard of before. A body that has a mind that is not a human mind. A body that doesn't weigh a pound. A body that is incorporeal. It's a strange and wonderful body. A body that has no size. A body that is 4 dimensions. And then you discover infinite dimensions. A body that is bigger than the moon. And yet, you start out with an awareness of its smallness. A body that is never sick. And to your amazement, that is the body that carries you around all day. And then you find that body does not even know night from day, because there is none. It is perfect freedom in infinite body. But its beginning is small in your understanding. It's worth the price you paid in so many ways. That's the beginning of your divine life. It may start that way, it may start another way, but it's got to begin somewhere. And cherish that beginning. Let it slowly engulf you and grow with you. And notice that it has no such thing as fear. There's no one to fear. It's in a world apart, a world of God. And when the absence of fear comes upon you, you will realize, I have found the location of my spiritual body. It has no personal ambition of any kind, because it has acquired and done all that God had for it to do. Let this body be your destination. Rebirth. Give it some thought.
It was very strange to...
And when you give it thought, there is a special way to do it.
20 centuries ago,
and we'll go into
even
the way
Nicodemus,
we
who was
think
more advanced than some,
about our body,
was puzzled.
Where we find our body,
And Jesus' attempt to establish with
the way
him
we live in our body.
the concept of rebirth from the human to the spiritual brought about a series of anxieties in the life of Nicodemus. He couldn't understand. It just didn't make sense. How could he be reborn? He even asked the question, how can I enter into my mother's womb again? And the first birth, of course, from the mother's womb, was not what you were doing in rebirth. It is to change what was thought to be the birth of the human race into the reality of immortality. Now, you have thought of yourself as a human being, and I know you're going to labor to lose that concept. And when you accept yourself as the immortal, not born of woman, born in the Father's kingdom, you will look at your form and see that then this cannot be who I am. And it's strange. We can't tell the rest of the world the truth of it. We can only tell that to those who have expressed a desire to live in the eternal universe. And there's no way to live in the eternal universe in the belief that I am a form. And your spiritual body is not a form. You won't find where it ends or where it begins. It has no shape. It is a universal body. There is nothing beyond it. It is everybody's body. And until you accept it, you have no rebirth. Rebirth is the essential for coming into the awareness of the spiritual kingdom. Rebirth is the awareness that comes to you that I am the child of God, not the child of my parent. And that as the child of God, all that the Father has is mine, forever. When I became the child of God, I don't know, because it has no beginning in time. And if I am the child of God, then I cannot lack a quality of the Father. So Paul stepped forward and said, we are equal to God. The child of God is equal with God. And only the one who is the child of God lives in perpetuity. The one who is not the child of God is immortal, and has the life of a mortal, and the problems of a mortal, and the termination of a mortal, and no divine bestowals. So to be reborn is quite a project. You may think, I don't have enough time. I'm so many years old, I've only got 10 years to go. How can I be reborn? You may think, I don't have the capacity. I'm limited, I'm just a woman, I'm just a man. I have problems, I have children, I have this and that. I can't be reborn. You know, God doesn't think so. It just never occurred to God that you couldn't be reborn into God's kingdom, regardless of your age. And so Nicodemus, you see, was not a child. I would say Nicodemus was a senior citizen. And here he is the one who Christ is talking to about being reborn. Probably a grandfather. So let us not hear any statements about, I am too old to be reborn. I am too old to start living, to learn that my life is not in a body of flesh. Of course, that would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? But our lives are not in bodies of flesh. So now let us see how you're going to start thinking about yourself not in a body of flesh. Because undoubtedly we have all fallen into that direct lie about ourselves. I thought I was a body of flesh, and all the aches of that body were mine. All the problems of that body, everything connected to that body was my problem. And I wasn't talking about my body at all. I was talking about what I thought was my body. Because I looked in the mirror and I saw one. And then I looked out at the other friends of mine and they all had one too. And we all thought we were human beings. And then one by one, they disappeared from view. We have broken out of that. We have come into the understanding that every word spoken by the Father is the absolute truth. Every word the Father spoke. And every word the Father spoke is the only word that is the absolute truth. And whatever the Father says to me that I can do and must do, I can do and will do. Because the Father's word is the only word that is the Word of God. So develop this new hope and say, what does the Father say? What does the Father do? And for whom does He do it? And why not me? I'm in a world of miracles. And I can't live without a miracle. Sometimes 2 or 3 a day. How can we live without miracles? When we all thought we were something we were not. And the Father's miracle says, "Be ye reborn of the Spirit." Oh, I am not going to be reborn of the flesh. That's the difference. Sure, I'm old. I'm 77. I'm going to be 80-something, and I'm ready to die. But I'm told to be born of the flesh. No more. But be ye born of the Spirit. And now I see what Nicodemus was facing. He thought he had to be reborn of the flesh. But he was being told about a new birth, in which he became a child again, in which the qualities of the Father were slowly added to him as he developed the awareness of their presence. Another life in exchange for the life that never was. So when we think of a new birth, we're not talking about taking tired old bones. We're not talking about a breathing process that isn't working becoming a good breathing process. We're not talking about a brain that isn't Phi Beta Kappa suddenly becoming Super Kappa. We're talking about a new you, which is the original you. And that's quite different. You're not going to be retreaded. You're stepping out into a brave new universe, a universe with a different substance, a spiritual universe where you are the Spirit of God, where you never have an age, where you never grow old. If this were not true, we wouldn't be teaching it. We believe it because we have learned it is true. We have learned through experience of it. Some in lesser measure than others. But we have learned that the words of Spirit are true. And that everyone on the earth, everyone, is going to go through a rebirth of spiritual development, which will take them out of the flesh which ages. That's what we're talking about. And that's what we're finding wherever we go. So if you're 60, 50, 40, 30, 70, 80, 90, don't worry about that. That has nothing to do with rebirth. Rebirth is a change of concept from concept to the reality of being. You start out in spirit in your rebirth as a child. It's the equivalent of a 20-minute child. It grows by the minute. But yet, you have the wisdom of the saints. Now we all have this opportunity to have a rebirth. Not of the flesh, but of the spirit. We never had been flesh, and consequently the rebirth of the spirit is the first time that we are being taken into our true self. Nicodemus was going to learn that in his second birth he had escaped from the tyranny of the first birth. The first birth which showed him that man without God is lost, inevitably dead. That man requires the presence of God in order to be a living spirit. He is the substance of God, and he cannot be separated from God, or else he wanders off into a thing called humanhood and loses the precious possession of life. There is no human life. It is our grandest obsession. A life that ends is not life. Life is continuous, forever. Life is of God. And when you have the possibility of attaining that life, never think you're too old or not adaptable to it. It was meant for every human being to learn that he is not a human being, and that his days of mortality are numbered by the degree to which he accepts the spiritual rebirth. So we're talking now not to a few, to everyone. And then as you learn what the world is not prepared to learn, then one here and one there learns from you, and you in turn become their teacher. You learn to take your children aside and say what you must say, that God is their Father. They are children of the Father. You bring new vision, new hope. You bring a new level of attainment. They don't go out and get a degree at college, end up in a specific job, do well at it, then grow older, and then lose the job, lose the security, and move into that realm which says, it's time now for you to pass on. That's the old world that never was, that we always thought was. Thank heaven for the spiritual vision that is on this earth, which is given the awareness of life everlasting, of divinity everlasting. I don't care who you are. Your limitations are not God's limitations. And you are being told that you can accept God's life without limitation. No matter who you are, what you feel you are, your life is the life of God without limitation. And you may turn it down for another 2,000 years. But in the end, every knee will bend, every knee will fall, every knee will say, well, I didn't think I could do it. But I wasn't counting on the Father's giving me the power to do it. And so we're going into rebirth with that understanding. There's nothing in rebirth that I've got to do. I will be reborn. Maybe it will seem like I am helping it along, but I won't be standing in the way. The Father says, be ye reborn of the Spirit. And I didn't see that he said, there's one religion excluded, or there's one race excluded. Everybody from Mohammedan to Israelite to Christian to all religions, and even to the atheist. What do you think happened to Judas? Each is entitled to the fullness of his spiritual development. And it has taken so long for us to come to the realization that our spiritual development is where our growth comes in. Now there's nothing can stop us. Absolutely nothing. They could put you in jail for a year. You'd still be able to grow spiritually, because it's the Father's will. And wherever you are, the Father's will, if permitted, if not interfered with, the Father's will prevails. You step right out of that prison cell. The gates open. And the gates of the mind also open. So the cell that locks you in your mind, the cell that says you can just go this far in life, you don't have the opportunities. Those cell walls are just a waste of time. There are men who have become famous with miniature beginnings, women who have done likewise. Died where he was meditating, to the sea where they were in danger. Incorporeal spirit can do that. It is instantly wherever it wants to be, wherever it must be. And so they were saved. That quality, that unique quality, is the nature of spirit for every one of us. Every quality of spirit is not given to one individual. The qualities of spirit we all partake of when we are that spirit. So that every miracle performed by the Jesus, by the Christ, is performed by none other but the Christ that you are. And that is how you become the practitioner of Christ's miracles. Only because the Christ is you. And once you begin to be aware that the Christ is I, then the miracles become part of that Christhood. They're not considered miracles to the Christ. They're merely shown to the human beings of the world as miracles. They're everyday living, because perfection is the Christ rule. I'd like each one of us to find within himself something that he considers a miracle, and rest in that idea for a moment. Perhaps a miracle that happened to you, perhaps a miracle that happened to a friend, or perhaps a miracle that happened to someone you don't know, but you know it happened. And think of that miracle for a moment. Could it happen in the material world? Or did it happen first in the spiritual world and then appear to us as a miracle? Are you aware that every miracle performed by the Christ, Jesus, occurred because he was in a spiritual body? Do you think that your spiritual body is a different body and will not perform those miracles? The moment you are in your spiritual body, every miracle performed by Jesus is in your repertoire of things that I can do. This may seem out of reach to you, why don't you give it a whirl and see? Why don't you, for example, spend the next day or so, even a couple of hours a day, and accept the spiritual body of Christ as the spiritual body of you. That's the truth of who you are anyway. I am the spiritual Christ, therefore I have the spiritual body. And this spiritual body is capable of miracles that I did not know would be mine. It can repair quickly because it's never ill. It can break the illusion of needing repair. It can do things that I wouldn't dare to even dream. But I have that spiritual body. It was mine from the beginning. I've never used it. I didn't know I had it. Well, I can't expect it to do things like leaping 6,000 miles a second, but I can expect small miracles. And then I can say that these miracles were not done by a me. They were performed by I, the Spirit of God, which indwells me. And I is capable of all miracles on the face of this earth. I'm going to learn to release my miracle capacity by releasing my I. I won't have to go looking for miracles. I simply will live in I, and I will do the living for me. Whatever I does, I will do. I will let I lead me. I which knows no evil. I which knows no material substance. I which knows no limitation. I which knows the fullness of God. I will live me. And this I will call Christ. And while I live, there will be a person outside that people will see. That's their problem. I is living my life. In relation to every life on this earth. I who is never hungry. I who never lacks. And every time I think I lack something, I'm not in I. Because when I'm in I will not lack. I'm never sick. When I'm in I'm not sick. I is never sick. But there must be a knowledge, a realization of this I. It isn't done by rote, by memory. It's done through the realization of I. That means there'll be many dark nights of the soul as you live with the I, in spite of what appears, until I establishes itself. The prize is worth the living. You are given a universe without limitations. If you have the courage to live in the eye of your being, it slowly shows you the way. Small ways that grow into bigger ways. And then the miracle of I proves itself and teaches you that nothing is impossible to I. All the things you thought were impossible were human. Because I is the Son of the Father. I and the Father are one. The golden opportunity that awaits each of us to realize I is available because we have reached that level of consciousness which is willing to say, I am not a human being. I will not live as a human being. And I will suffer, but I will maintain the knowledge that I am I. Then I will suffer no more. For when I is established, that which is beyond human possibilities will be my everyday life. I will never see night again. Only the mortal sees life, with a night and a day. I will never think of age again. And age won't think of me. In the eye of my being, I transcend age. Do you think Paul has transcended age? Do you think Jesus has transcended age? Think Isaiah has transcended age? Do you realize these immortals live forever? They were once men and women like us. Paul was a man, a religion student, a good one, and he switched to Judaism. From Judaism, he switched to the Christ because he saw the nature of the divine, which was not a way of human thought, but the divine law which each man had to discover for himself. And as he pursued it, he understood the Christ. He did things that men do not do, that the Christ could do. And when he disappeared from the earth, he lived in his immortal self. Where is Paul today? In the infinite universe. Each member of the infinite universe is an immortal who graduated from being a human being. They are living examples of what is available to anyone who is determined and is enlightened enough to feel that he can reach that plateau. I don't know all of you, just some of you. I have friends among you whom I know will reach that plateau. They have lived for that purpose. They will reach whatever plateau is in store for them, been prepared for them by the Father. Nothing will stop them. Their death will be nothing. They will appear dead. They will not die. They will always be alive and always pursuing the goal. And when they accomplish that goal, they will be in the fifth world, in the Father's kingdom. Like Paul, like Isaiah, like the many who have found that death is just a word. Not a fact. I would like to feel that everyone here, everyone, will remember that his and her mission on the earth is to grow out of the illusion that I must die, that I must suffer, that I must lack, that I must be limited. These are not the words of enlightened human beings. These are the words of human beings who have discovered very little in life. Even enlightened human beings is not enough for the self that we are. We must be willing to die in the physical world for what we believe, and we must believe that we can never die. Something comes to you when you have reached a certain level of thought, and you realize that you're not thinking your own thought anymore. Somewhere, your thought is in abeyance. Suddenly, you feel that someone is putting these thoughts in my head. These thoughts must be coming from some being who is enlightened, possibly to Christ himself. And then you discover the validity of those thoughts by what happens. If what happens is negative, the chances are the thoughts were not valid. But if the thoughts bring with them the activity that supports them and lifts you above the human level of activity into a sense of this is ordained. The Father wanted me to come this far. Then you will find reason for continuing in that direction. And that's how you will find the assurance that your name is written in the book of life, that you truly are a student of divine living, and that someday you will not be a student. You will have others to walk with you. I'd like to feel that we all have a date. We have to say it in years, but it isn't years. As if it were 1,000 years from now we would meet. It would just be minutes in spirit. if there are such things, who we would meet behind the veil and each say to the other, "Thanks for a job well done. Thanks for giving me the courage to live outside of my human mind, above my human thoughts, to find a way to travel where my body was not the limit of my being, where everything that I was as a mortal melted away, and I found that the Spirit of God was truly my substance."
If this message is speaking to your heart, please subscribe to Your Miracle Self. Let's continue this journey together.